She thought he was just a homeless man standing outside the mansion gates. Old. Dirty. Forgotten. But what she didn't know was that this man carried a secret. A secret that could change everything. Not just for her, but for the powerful family she worked for. This is the story of Ada. A girl with nothing but a kind heart and a dream she refused to let die. Sit back and listen closely, because what happened next will shock you. Ada was just 22 years old. She worked as a housemaid in the Okafor mansion in Abuja. 6 days a week, she scrubbed floors, washed clothes, and cleaned rooms most people only saw on TV. Every morning, she woke up before sunrise. She wrapped her hair, ironed her plain brown uniform, and got to work before the family even opened their eyes. But no one knew the truth behind her smile. Her parents died in a car crash when she was just 14. Since then, Ada had lived with distant relatives, working odd jobs to survive. She sold oranges in traffic. She washed clothes for strangers. And now, she worked here, in a house filled with chandeliers and secrets. But even after everything life took from her, Ada still had a dream. At night, lying on a thin mattress in the servants' quarters, she watched cooking videos on her cracked phone. She wanted to be a chef. To open her own restaurant someday. She didn't want pity. She didn't want charity. She just wanted a chance. That chance came on a rainy Thursday afternoon. And it started with a small act of kindness. Not far from the Okafor mansion, beneath a rusted pedestrian bridge, sat a man the world had forgotten. Old, weathered, and wrapped in a coat that had seen too many rains. People passed him by every day. Some turned away. Most didn't even notice. To them, he was just another beggar. Another reminder of life's cruelty. But once, a long time ago, this man had a name that carried weight. Jide Okafor. A businessman. A father. A man with a future. Years ago, Jide ran a thriving trade business with his brothers. He built the foundation that his son, Felix, now stood on. But one betrayal changed everything. It came quietly. From his own blood. One missing ledger. One accusation. And just like that, he lost everything. His brothers turned their backs. His son was too young to understand. And his wife, heartbroken, died a year later. Jide left the house with nothing but a small bag and a broken spirit. For years, he wandered. Town to town. Market to market. He did odd jobs when he could. But time, age, and regret wore him down. Eventually, he stopped trying to start over. He lived beneath bridges. In abandoned taxis. Inside church courtyards. Anywhere the rain couldn't reach. And through it all, he never reached out to his son. Felix had grown up and become a man of his own. He had his empire now. And Jide didn't want pity. He didn't want to be a shadow haunting his son's success. But hunger has a way of humbling pride. That day, the sun was high. Jide had gone almost 2 days without food. His legs were weak. His lips dry. He passed a tall black gate surrounded by flowers and guards. It wasn't the house that caught his attention. It was the smell, food, wafting through the air. He stood for a moment. Watching. There were servants inside. A few chatting by the kitchen window. A girl mopping the veranda. He didn't know this was Felix's mansion. He didn't know the girl was Ada. He just knew he was starving. And for the first time in a long while, he stepped forward to ask for help. Ada was sweeping the driveway when she saw him. An old man. Thin. Dirty. leaning against the gate like he might fall over. She paused. Something about him made her heart tighten. His clothes were torn in several places. His face sunken. He looked like he hadn't eaten in days. He moved closer to the security post. The guard on duty, Bayo, stood up sharply. "Olga, move from here. This is private property." The old man coughed, then whispered, "Please. I just need something to eat." Bayo laughed. "This is not a charity center. You're disturbing the peace. Move now." Jide stayed where he was. His hands shook. He looked like he might faint. Ada put down her broom and walked forward. She stepped between the gate and the old man. "Uncle Bayo, please, let me talk to him." Bayo frowned. "Ada, don't start. This man is a nuisance." "He's hungry," she replied softly. "Let me handle it." Bayo backed off, muttering under his breath. Ada turned to the man. She crouched beside him and opened her apron pocket. Inside was a small wrap of food. Bread and akara. Her lunch. She unwrapped it and held it out. "Here, sir. Eat." The old man blinked. His eyes were wet. He stared at her like she wasn't real. Then he took the food, slowly. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you, my daughter. May heaven reward you." Ada nodded. "Eat first. We can talk later." He took a bite. Then another. Tears rolled down his face. From hunger. From shame. From the unexpected kindness. Just then, the housekeeper came storming out of the kitchen. She stopped when she saw the scene. "What is going on here?" Ada stood. "He was hungry. I gave him my food." The housekeeper scowled. "You're feeding strangers? Right in front of the house? What if he's mad? Or dangerous?" "He's just hungry, Ma. Take him away. Before the guests arrive." Jide stood shakily. He wiped his mouth. "I'll go," he said softly. Ada touched his shoulder. "No. You're not an animal. You don't have to run." At that moment, a black SUV pulled into the compound. The driver rushed to open the back door. A woman stepped out, wearing a blue lace wrapper and gold earrings. It was Madame Grace, Felix's aunt. She was coming for a short visit. She glanced at the crowd and froze. Her eyes locked on the old man. Jide turned away, but it was too late. Her voice broke. "Jide." The old man looked up slowly. His lips parted, but no words came. Madame Grace took a step closer. Her eyes widened. Her hands trembled. "It's you! My God, it's you!" The housekeeper gasped. Ada blinked in confusion. "You're alive," Grace whispered. "We thought you died. After the fire, after the lies, we never saw you again." Jide looked down. "I didn't die. I just couldn't come back." Grace's voice cracked. "All these years. Felix searched for you." Jide's eyes snapped up. "What?" "He searched. When he grew up, he tried everything. But no one knew where you'd gone." Jide staggered back. I thought he hated me." Grace shook her head. "No. Never. He wanted answers. He wanted his father." The housekeeper stood frozen. Bayo took off his cap. Ada looked between them all, stunned. Grace turned to Ada. "You gave him food?" Ada nodded. Thank you, Grace said. You didn't know who he was. But you saw his humanity. You saw what we all missed. Jide sat on the curb, overwhelmed. Grace reached for her phone. I need to call Felix. Right now. She walked away, speaking into the phone in fast whispers. Ada turned to Jide. He was staring at her. You gave me food, when you had nothing. Ada smiled gently. I know what it feels like to be hungry and invisible. Jide wiped his face with both hands. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like a ghost. He felt seen, valued, alive. From that moment forward, nothing would be the same again. Not for Jide. Not for Ada. Not for Felix. Because what began as one small act of kindness was about to reconnect a family torn apart and change Ada's life forever. For 2 days, Ada didn't see the old man again. But she couldn't forget him. His shaking hands. His soft thank you. That kind of gratitude, it stays with you. She asked Bayo if he had returned. Bayo just shrugged and muttered. He's probably gone. These ones don't stick around for long. Ada nodded politely. But deep down, she knew something about that man was different. She could feel it. Meanwhile, behind the high walls of the mansion, whispers had started to spread. It began with a call. Grace had told Felix. Felix Okafor. The billionaire son of Jide. The same Felix who hadn't seen his father in nearly 2 decades. He was silent when Grace told him. Dead silent. Then he whispered one word. Where? Grace gave him the address. Then she added. There's a girl, a maid. She gave him food. Protected him. Felix didn't reply. He simply ended the call, stood from his desk, and told his assistant to cancel everything on his calendar. That night, Felix didn't sleep. He stared at his ceiling for hours. His mind spinning with 1,000 questions. Why now? Why was his father outside his own home unrecognizable, homeless? What had really happened all those years ago? He needed to see him. He needed answers. And he needed to meet the girl. The next morning, Ada was cleaning the dining hall when Madame Grace walked in. She didn't say anything at first. Just watched her. Ada noticed and greeted softly, Good morning, Ma. Grace walked closer. You're Ada, right? Ada paused. Yes, Ma. Grace smiled warmly. You gave food to an old man outside the gate. Ada looked down. Yes, Ma. He was hungry. Grace nodded. That old man is my brother-in-law. And Felix's father. Ada gasped. She didn't speak. Grace stepped closer. You saw him when we didn't. You helped him when we looked away. Ada blinked, still in shock. Grace touched her arm gently. Felix wants to meet you. Ada's heart skipped. She wasn't ready for what was coming. Felix arrived later that afternoon. He didn't come with his convoy. No bodyguards. No noise. Just him and a quiet car. He stepped out, dressed simply. White shirt. Dark jeans. No watch. No pride. He walked straight into the living room where Grace, Jide, and Ada were waiting. The moment Jide saw him, he stood up slowly. Felix froze. The room went silent. Jide whispered, Felix. Felix stared. His lips trembled. He hadn't cried in years. Not since his mother died. But now, he could barely speak. He walked closer and dropped to his knees. Tears rolled down his face. "I thought you were gone," he said softly. Ada's voice cracked. "I thought you hated me." Felix shook his head. "I missed you every day." The two men embraced. No words. Just raw, aching silence. Grace wiped her eyes. Ada stood still in the corner, unsure if she should stay or slip away quietly. But Felix noticed her. He turned, and their eyes met. "You're Ada?" She nodded slowly. Felix walked toward her, still wiping his face. "You gave my father food. You didn't know who he was. You didn't care. You just helped." Ada tried to smile, but she was too nervous. "I just saw someone in need." Felix looked at her for a long moment. Then he smiled. "A lot of people saw him. But only you acted." Ada looked down. "It was nothing." Felix shook his head. "It was everything." He turned to his aunt. "I want to do something for her." Grace raised an eyebrow. "Like what?" Felix looked back at Ada. "Come work for me." Ada blinked. "Sir?" "I want you on my team," Felix said. "Not as a maid. As my assistant. Proper salary. Full training. You choose your hours. And if you want to go back to school, I'll sponsor it." The room was quiet. Ada didn't know what to say. "I don't have a certificate," she said softly. "I didn't finish school." Felix smiled. "Neither did some of the richest people I know." He walked to the couch and picked up a tablet. Tapping it, he showed her a simple layout. An online university portal. "I've already created an account for you. If you say yes, this becomes yours." Ada stared at the screen. Her name was already typed in. She looked up at Felix. "Why are you doing this?" Felix shrugged gently. "Because you reminded me of something I forgot. That real power is kindness." Ada covered her mouth. Tears spilled down her cheeks. She nodded slowly. "I'll work hard, sir. I won't disappoint you." Felix smiled. "I believe you." That night, Ada moved into the staff quarters. Not as a maid, but as a member of Felix's personal team. She received her first paycheck within a week. She enrolled in online classes by the second. And every day, she grew. She learned how to type reports, schedule meetings, respond to emails. She made mistakes, but never the same one twice. Felix watched from a distance. The girl who once cleaned floors now sat confidently at a desk. She brought him coffee with a smile. Reminded him of meetings he forgot. And when he looked at her, he didn't just see gratitude anymore. He saw brilliance. One evening, he walked into the office late. She was still there. Books open. Laptop glowing. "Still studying?" he asked. She looked up, surprised. "Trying to catch up on a finance module." He smiled and pulled out a chair. "Mind if I join?" They studied side by side in silence. And for the first time, Ada didn't feel like a maid. She didn't feel like a helper. She felt seen. Weeks passed. And whispers began again. But this time, they weren't about an old beggar. They were about Ada. And the man who was slowly falling in love with her. Ada sat on the edge of her new bed. For the first time in years, her feet weren't touching cracked concrete or cold floor tiles. The staff apartment Felix gave her was small, but clean. It had white curtains, warm lights, and a kitchen of her own. To Ada, it felt like a palace. She ran her fingers over the soft blanket, still wondering if all this was real. Just days ago, she had been scrubbing floors for survival. Now, she had a salary, a room with a view, and a second chance at life. She woke up every morning before sunrise, just like before. But now, she wore smart blouses instead of aprons. She carried files, not buckets. She typed emails, attended meetings, even answered direct calls from the CEO. Felix had introduced her as his new personal assistant. Some staff whispered behind her back. Some doubted her. But Ada stayed focused. She listened more than she spoke. Took notes when others didn't. Remembered every little detail Felix mentioned, even offhand. Within 2 weeks, she was reminding him of his schedule. Fixing small errors in his reports. Offering tea just when his voice got tired. She wasn't just good. She was exceptional. But she didn't stop there. Each night, after work, Ada returned to her apartment, opened her laptop, and attended her online classes. The university login was sent by Felix himself. She was enrolled in a culinary diploma program. Her dream of becoming a chef wasn't dead, it had simply waited for the right time. She would watch recorded lectures late into the night. Sometimes, her eyes burned from exhaustion. But she didn't complain. Not even once. Felix didn't know she was juggling both. Not until one evening, his driver casually mentioned it. "She's always with a book, sir. Or watching something on that small laptop. Never goes out." Felix smiled quietly. He didn't say much, but inside, his respect for her grew. One afternoon, Felix walked into the office and found Ada fast asleep at her desk. A file still open. Pen in her hand. He didn't wake her. He stood there, just watching. And in that moment, something shifted. It wasn't just admiration anymore. It was care. Real, human care. Felix started lingering near her desk more often. At first, it was just short questions. "Ada, did you confirm the meeting for 2 p.m.? She would nod, smile, and continue typing. Then it became small talk. "How's the culinary course going?" "It's good," she would say. "I made jollof rice from scratch last night. No seasoning cubes." He laughed. Bold move. And slowly, the walls between them thinned. One Friday, Felix stopped by her desk with 2 cups of fresh juice. "Long week," he said, handing her one. Ada took it, surprised. "Thank you, sir." "Don't call me sir," he said gently. "Just Felix is fine." She nodded. But the word Felix never came out of her mouth that day. She still called him sir the next morning. A week later, she forgot and said his name by accident. He smiled. That was the beginning. After work, he started walking her to the gate. Sometimes, he'd ask what she was cooking that night. Other times, he'd just walk beside her in silence. One rainy evening, he offered to drive her home. The rain was heavy. Ada hesitated. "I don't want you to go out of your way." "It's on my way," he replied, smiling. That night, they sat in the car longer than needed. They spoke about childhood. Parents. Loss. Ada spoke about her father's yam farm. How she missed the smell of smoke and pepper soup on rainy days. Felix told her about his mother's hidden recipe for egusi. And how he missed his father's old radio. For the first time, their lives didn't feel worlds apart. They felt close. Like 2 people who had fought through life's storms and found peace in the same shelter. After that, the air between them changed. Felix noticed how Ada bit her lip when she was deep in thought. Ada noticed how Felix tapped his pen when he was trying not to smile. At meetings, their eyes would meet across the room. and for a second, everything else would fade. But neither of them said anything. Until one evening, Felix called Ada into his office late. She thought it was work-related. She carried her notepad, ready. But he wasn't sitting at his desk. He was near the window, hands in his pockets. She stepped in. "You called me, sir?" He turned. "I wanted to ask something, not about work." Ada froze. She blinked. He walked toward her, slowly. "I've been thinking about us. You and me." Her breath caught. "I didn't want to make things awkward, especially here, but I care about you, Ada." She stared at him. Quiet. Stunned. Felix continued. "You're not just smart and kind. You're honest. You've been through so much, and still, you shine." He took a deep breath. "I like you. I admire you. And if you feel anything for me, I'd like to take you to dinner. Not as my assistant. Just as Ada." Silence. Ada looked down. Then up. "I do feel something," she whispered. He smiled. A quiet, relieved smile. "But," she added quickly, "I want to finish my studies first. I've never completed anything in my life. This one. I want to finish it." Felix nodded. "I understand. No rush. No pressure. Just dinner. One step at a time." Ada smiled. "I'd like that." That Friday evening, they had dinner. No staff. No titles. Just two people. Eating, laughing, talking like they'd known each other for years. When he dropped her off that night, he didn't try to hold her hand. He didn't rush. He simply said, "Good night, Ada," and waited until she was inside. The next morning, Ada entered the office earlier than usual. But something in her had changed. She wasn't just the girl who cleaned floors or fetched files. She was the girl who now believed she was worthy of being loved. It had been 3 months since Ada started working as Felix Okafor's assistant. Every morning, she walked into the office with a quiet confidence. Every evening, she went back to her small apartment with a grateful heart. She had come a long way from that dusty street corner. No longer just the housemaid. No longer invisible. Felix had seen her. Respected her. Trained her. And slowly, fallen for her. But he hadn't said anything. Not yet. Not until tonight. Felix stood at the balcony of his penthouse apartment, staring at the city lights. In his hand, he held a small velvet box. Inside it was a ring. Simple. Elegant. Just like Ada. He heard the elevator door open behind him. He turned. There she was. Wearing a soft blue dress. Hair pulled back. Smiling, but unsure. "You wanted to see me?" she asked gently. Felix nodded. "Come outside," he said. "I want to show you something." Ada stepped onto the balcony, her eyes scanning the city below. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Felix looked at her. "So are you." She smiled, shy. Then looked away. "I've been thinking," he said. "About what?" she asked. "About you," he replied. "And me." Ada turned to face him. Her heart beat faster. Felix reached into his pocket and pulled out the box. He didn't open it right away. Instead, he held it between them. "Ada," he began. "When you helped my father that day, you didn't know who he was. You didn't expect anything. You didn't even want a reward. You gave your food. Your kindness. Your heart. Ada looked down, blinking fast. He continued. And since that day, I haven't been able to stop thinking about you. I've watched the way you work. The way you speak to people. The way you carry yourself. You're humble, strong, graceful, and honest. He opened the box. A small diamond sparkled under the city lights. I don't want to rush you, he said. I don't want to pressure you. I just want to ask. He paused, then dropped to one knee. Will you marry me? The world went quiet. Ada stared at him, hands shaking. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Tears filled her eyes. Then she dropped to her knees too. Not beside him, but in front of him. She took his hand and held it tight. I never thought, she whispered. I never believed a day like this would come. Felix smiled. Is that a yes? She nodded. Yes. 1,000 times yes. They laughed through their tears. He slid the ring on her finger. It fit perfectly. Just like everything else between them. They stood. He pulled her into a hug. And for the first time in a long time, Ada felt home. The news spread quickly. Mrs. Grace danced when she heard. Felix's cousins shouted with joy. The household staff, who once dismissed Ada, now greeted her with fresh respect. But the most joyful of all was Mr. G-Day. The old man who once stood outside the gate. Now clean, smiling, and seated at the head of the table. He looked at Ada with proud eyes. You gave a hungry man bread, he said softly. But God gave you a banquet. Ada smiled. Baba, I never expected this. Mr. G-Day leaned in. That's why it came. The wedding was small. Just family and a few close friends. No paparazzi. No loud music. Just love. Simple. Pure. Real. Ada wore a white wedding dress made by a popular fashion house in the city. Felix wore a black suit and white shirts, calm and regal. As he watched her walk down the aisle, he saw only one thing. A heart that had stayed kind through pain. A woman who never gave up. They exchanged vows under the setting sun. Felix took her hand. I don't promise you a life without trouble, he said. But I promise you honesty, safety, and respect. Ada smiled through tears. I don't come with riches or fame, she replied. But I come with love, loyalty, and peace. They kissed as family cheered. And just like that, Ada's new chapter began. The mansion changed. Not in design, but in spirit. Ada didn't become a queen who ordered people around. She remained who she was. Quiet. Gentle. Grateful. She opened a small cooking school for girls from poor communities. She paid their fees from her new salary. When asked why, she would say, because someone once opened a door for me. And she never forgot that door. One evening, Felix found her in the kitchen. She was frying plantains and laughing with one of the maids. He stood at the doorway and just watched. You're glowing, he said, stepping in. Ada turned, wiping her hands. It's the oil, she joked. No, he said, walking closer. It's the joy. He wrapped his arms around her from behind. They stood in silence for a moment. Then she said, Do you ever think about that day? Felix nodded. The day you fed my father? No, she said, turning to him. The day I almost didn't. He looked confused. I almost walked away, she said. I was tired. Hungry. I thought it wasn't my business. But something in me stopped. And I'm glad it did. Felix smiled. Me too. The following year, Ada gave birth to a baby girl. They named her Igioma, meaning safe journey. Because that's what Ada's life had been. A long, hard, dangerous journey that ended in peace. One afternoon, while sitting under a mango tree in the family compound, Mr. Gide looked at his granddaughter sleeping in his arms. He turned to Ada. "Do you know what saved your life?" he asked. Ada looked at him, waiting. "Compassion," he said. "Not education. Not money. Just pure, human compassion." Ada nodded. "It saved mine too." And so, the girl who once gave her only bread to a stranger was now surrounded by love, warmth, and purpose. Her story was no longer about struggle, but about redemption. Not just hers, but for a family once broken. Sometimes, all it takes is one small act of kindness to unlock a lifetime of blessings. Ada never planned to be a hero. She never imagined she'd marry into wealth. She simply saw someone in need, and gave what she could. And that changed everything. Because love doesn't always come wrapped in diamonds. Sometimes, it comes as a dusty old man asking for food. Proverbs 19 verse 17 says, "Whoever is kind to the poor lends to the Lord, and he will reward them for what they have done." Ada didn't expect a reward. But heaven saw her heart. And heaven responded. Galatians 6 verse 9 reminds us, "Let us not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." Her kindness opened doors no degree could. Her compassion restored what generations had lost. And when you give from the heart, heaven always gives back. Luke 6 verse 38 says, "Give, and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together and running over." Ada gave what little she had. God gave her more than she ever dreamed. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And stay tuned, another life-changing story drops in just a few days.